The vampire king's son asked a question at breakfast that stopped every heart in the room. Not because the boy was rude, or loud, or inappropriate, but because his small voice, innocent and confused, cut through years of silence like a blade through silk. "Mommy, why does Daddy's friend hurt you?" 4-year-old Prince Matthias didn't understand why his mother's face went white. Didn't understand why LordCorrelis dropped his fork with a clatter. Didn't understand why his father, the ancient and powerful King Aldric, went completely still, his dark eyes shifting from his son to the woman standing by the serving table. Elena, the castle seamstress. A widow who'd worked in the royal household for 3 years, who brought her son to work because she had no one else to care for him, who kept her head down and her bruises hidden. Until a child noticed what a king had failed to see. What happened next would expose a betrayal that had festered for years, awaken a mate bond the king never knew existed, and prove that sometimes the smallest voices deliver the most devastating truths. Elena's hands never stopped moving. That was the first rule of survival in Castle Nighthaven. Stay busy, stay invisible, stay alive. She sat in the servants' workroom, a stone chamber in the castle's eastern wing where sunlight barely reached. Her needle flashed through silk, mending a tear in one of the queen's, the late queen's, gowns. Queen Isolde had died 2 years ago, but her wardrobe remained, beautiful relics that Elena was tasked with maintaining for the king's daughter when she came of age. Across the room, her son Matthias played with wooden blocks, building towers and knocking them down with 4-year-old enthusiasm. His dark curls fell into his eyes, her eyes, warm brown, nothing like his father's had been. Her late husband Marcus had been a castle guard who died in a border skirmish when Matthias was 6 months old. The king had been generous, allowing her to stay on, giving her work, permitting her to bring her son during the day. She should have been grateful. She was terrified. "Mama, look." Matthias held up a crooked tower. "It's tall like the castle." "It's beautiful, sweetheart." Elena forced a smile, though her ribs ached where Lord Theron had shoved her against the wall yesterday. "Very tall." The door opened. Elena's hands froze mid-stitch. Lord Theron Veyrath entered, the king's closest advisor, a vampire noble who'd served the crown for 40 years. He was handsome in the way predators are handsome, sharp features, pale skin, eyes like winter frost. He wore council robes of deep crimson, the mark of his station. "Lady Elena." His voice was silk over steel. "The king requires alterations to his ceremonial cloak. He'll need it by tomorrow evening." Elena stood immediately, setting aside the gown. "Of course, my lord. I'll begin at once." Theron's gaze slid to Matthias. "And the child?" "Still bringing him to work, I see." "I have no one to watch him, my lord. He's quiet. He doesn't disturb." "He disturbs me." Theron stepped closer. Too close. His hand reached out, fingers grazing her cheek where a fading bruise showed through the powder she'd applied. "This has faded nicely. You heal quickly for a human." Elena's stomach turned. "My lord, I should fetch the cloak and—" His fingers tightened on her jaw, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You should remember who protects you here. Who ensures you keep your position. Who keeps certain accidents from being reported to the king." The accidents were no accidents. 3 months ago, Elena had witnessed Theron accepting a bribe from a merchant seeking to bypass tariffs. When she'd stumbled upon the exchange in a storage room, Theron had made it clear what would happen if she spoke. First, he'd threatened her position. Then her son's safety. Then, when neither silenced her completely, he'd started with his hands. A shove here. A grip too tight there. Bruises hidden beneath long sleeves and high collars. He never struck her face where it would show, never left marks visible to others. He was too clever for that. And he knew she'd never tell. Because who would believe a widowed seamstress over the king's most trusted advisor? "I understand, my lord," Elena whispered. "Good." He released her, adjusting his robes. "Bring the cloak to my chambers tonight. 9 o'clock. We'll discuss the alterations, privately." He left before she could respond. Matthias had stopped playing. His small face was scrunched with confusion. "Mama, why does that man make you sad?" "He doesn't, sweetheart." Elena knelt beside him, smoothing his curls. Mama's just tired. You're always tired when he comes. Children noticed everything. That was the problem. King Aldric Nighthaven had ruled for 300 years. He'd survived wars, plagues, political coups, and the death of his beloved queen. He'd learned to compartmentalize, to focus on the kingdom's needs over personal grief, to trust his advisors so he could manage the weight of the crown. Lord Theron Veyrath had been at his side for 4 decades. Reliable, efficient, utterly loyal. Or so Aldric believed. The throne room was empty except for Aldric and his council. They discussed border tensions with the Eastern Territories, trade agreements, the usual machinery of governance. Theron stood at Aldric's right hand, offering counsel in that measured, intelligent way he always did. The merchant guilds grow restless, Your Majesty, Theron said. Perhaps a reduction in tariffs would ease tensions. Or perhaps the guilds need reminding that tariffs fund the very roads they use. Aldric's voice carried the weight of centuries. What do you think, Correlis? LordCorrelis, the master of coin, shifted uncomfortably. He was younger than Theron, only 60 years as a vampire, still learning the delicate dance of court politics. Agree with Lord Theron, Your Majesty. The tariffs are quite high. Because the roads require constant maintenance. Aldric rubbed his temples. Since Isolde's death, these meetings felt longer, more tedious. His queen had always had a gift for cutting through political posturing, for seeing the human cost behind policy decisions. He missed her desperately. Perhaps we should hear from those affected, Aldric said. Theron, arrange meetings with representatives from each guild. I want to understand their concerns directly. Of course, Your Majesty. Theron bowed. I'll prepare the schedule. The council adjourned. Aldric remained on his throne, staring at the empty seat beside him where Isolde used to sit. She'd insisted on attending council meetings, said a queen should understand her kingdom as thoroughly as her king. She would have noticed things he missed, would have asked questions he didn't think to ask, would have seen what was happening in her own castle. But Isolde was gone. And Aldric was learning that loneliness made you blind. The next morning, Elena brought Matthias to the castle kitchen for breakfast. It was a routine she'd established. Feed him before the day's work began, keep him occupied with the kitchen staff who doted on him, then bring him to the workroom where he'd play quietly while she sewed. But today the head cook was sick. The kitchen was chaos. And when Theron entered looking for Elena, the only place to discuss the alterations to the king's cloak was the servants' dining area, where Prince Matthias sat eating porridge. Where, unfortunately for Theron, the king's legitimate son, 7-year-old Prince Davron, had also come looking for his favorite kitchen maid, who always snuck him extra sweets. Elena saw Theron approach and felt ice flood her veins. My lord, I have the measurements. I can begin work immediately. You were supposed to come to my chambers last night. Theron's voice was low, dangerous. He stood too close, his hand finding her wrist beneath the table. I waited. I'm sorry, my lord. Matthias was ill. I couldn't leave him. Couldn't or wouldn't? His grip tightened, fingers digging into the bruises already there. Elena bit back a gasp. Matthias looked up from his porridge, dark eyes wide. Mama? It's fine, sweetheart. Finish eating. But it wasn't fine. Theron's hand moved from her wrist to her upper arm, squeezing hard enough that Elena knew there'd be finger-shaped marks tomorrow. Tonight, Theron hissed. 9 o'clock. My chambers. If you're not there, I'll ensure the king learns about your indiscretions. What indiscretions? I haven't. Does it matter? His smile was cruel. I'm his most trusted advisor. You're a widowed seamstress. Who will he believe? He released her and left. Elena's arm throbbed. Her hands shook as she tried to lift her tea. Matthias set down his spoon. Mama, why does that man hurt you? He doesn't hurt me, sweetheart. But he squeezed your arm. Like this. Matthias demonstrated on his own small arm. That hurts. It's complicated. Does Daddy know? Elena's throat tightened. Matthias still called his late father Daddy, even though he'd been too young to remember him. Daddy's gone, remember? He's in heaven. No, the other Daddy. Elena blinked. What other? The king daddy. The one with the big chair. Horror washed over her. Matthias, no. The king isn't your daddy. He's the king. You can't say things like that. But he's nice. He smiled at me last week. And he looks sad like you do. That doesn't make him your father. We're servants here. We don't. Prince Davrin. A guard's voice echoed from the kitchen doorway. Your Majesty is looking for you. He wants you to join him for breakfast in the royal dining room. 7-year-old Prince Davrin, who'd been hiding behind the pantry door trying to sneak biscuits, groaned. But I already ate. His Majesty insists. Davrin trudged toward the door, then paused, looking at Matthias. Do you want to come? Father never minds if I bring friends. Oh no, Elena stood quickly. That's not appropriate. Matthias, we need to go. Please. Matthias looked at her with those big brown eyes. I've never seen the royal dining room. Elena wanted to refuse. Should have refused. But Matthias had so little joy in his life, and Prince Davrin was already pulling him by the hand, and the guard was nodding approval and, just for a moment, Elena heard herself say, then we come straight back. She would regret this decision for the rest of her life. The royal dining room was excessive in the way only centuries of accumulated wealth could create. Crystal chandeliers, tapestries depicting ancient battles, a table that could seat 40 but currently held only 3 place settings. King Aldric sat at the head, reviewing documents while he ate. He looked up when the door opened, his severe expression softening at the sight of his son. Davrin, there you are. Then his gaze shifted to the small boy trailing behind. And you've brought a friend. This is Matthias, father. His mama works in the castle. Aldric's eyes found Elena, who'd followed the boys inside and now stood frozen just inside the doorway. He recognized her, the seamstress, the widow of Marcus Thane, one of his guards who'd died with honor. Lady Elena. He nodded. Your son is welcome at our table. Your Majesty, I don't want to impose. It's no imposition. Aldric gestured to a chair. Davrin has few enough companions his own age. Please, sit. It wasn't a request. Elena sat, heart hammering. Matthias climbed into the chair beside Prince Davrin, eyes huge as he took in the room. Is that a dragon? Matthias pointed at a tapestry. Yes, Aldric said, a hint of warmth entering his voice. From the Dragon Wars, 300 years ago. My grandfather fought in that battle. Your grandfather must have been very brave. He was. Aldric set aside his documents. When was the last time he'd had a conversation at breakfast that wasn't about politics or grief? Do you like stories about dragons? I like all stories. Mama tells me stories every night before bed. Aldric's gaze shifted to Elena. Really looked at her for perhaps the first time. She was young, maybe late 20s, with dark hair pulled back in a practical bun. Pretty in an understated way. But there was something in her eyes, a wariness, an exhaustion that went deeper than mere fatigue. She kept her arms close to her body, her sleeves long despite the summer warmth. What kind of stories? Aldric asked Matthias, though he continued watching Elena. Happy ones, mostly. Mama says there's enough sad in real life. Something flickered across Elena's face. Pain quickly hidden. Lord Theron entered then, carrying scrolls. Your Majesty, the morning correspondence. He stopped, seeing Elena and Matthias at the table. His expression remained neutral, but Aldric noticed the slight tightening around his eyes. Lord Theron. Aldric nodded. We're having breakfast. The correspondence can wait. Of course, Your Majesty. Theron's gaze moved to Elena. Lady Elena, I trust you haven't forgotten our appointment this evening? Elena's hands clenched in her lap. No, my lord. Appointment? Aldric asked mildly. Alterations to your ceremonial cloak, Your Majesty, Theron explained smoothly. Lady Elena is reviewing the measurements tonight. Tonight seems late for measurements. It's when I'm available to review the work, Your Majesty. I want to ensure everything meets your standards. Aldric nodded, accepting the explanation. Why wouldn't he? Theron had never given him reason to doubt. Breakfast continued. Davrin and Matthias chattered about dragons and knights. Aldric found himself relaxing in a way he hadn't since Isolde's death. Children had a way of pulling you into the present, making politics and grief seem distant. Then Matthias asked his question. "Mommy, why does Daddy's friend hurt you?" The room went silent. Aldric's hand, lifting a cup of wine to his lips, froze. Davrin stopped mid-bite. Theron's carefully neutral expression cracked, just for a moment, revealing something cold and calculating beneath. Elena's face drained of color. "Matthias, sweetheart, we don't." "But he does," Matthias insisted with the brutal honesty of children. "He squeezed your arm this morning. And last week he pushed you into the wall in the workroom. I heard it. You cried after." "Matthias. And you have bruises. I saw them when you were changing. Purple ones on your arms and your back and—" "That's enough." Elena's voice cracked. She stood abruptly, chair scraping. "Your Majesty, I'm so sorry. He's young, he doesn't understand." "Who," Aldric said quietly, "is hurting you?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Elena's eyes darted to Theron, then away. "No one, Your Majesty. My son is confused. I'm clumsy. I've had some accidents. Multiple accidents that leave bruises in the shape of hands." Aldric's voice remained soft, but power hummed beneath it. 300 years of reading people, of detecting lies, crystallized in that moment. Who is he referring to when he says, "Daddy's friend"? Matthias, oblivious to the tension, pointed directly at Theron. "That man. He's always mean to Mama." Theron laughed. It was a good performance, surprised, slightly hurt. "Your Majesty, the boy is mistaken. I've never laid hands on Lady Elena. I barely interact with her beyond official business." "He's lying." Matthias's voice rose. "I saw him. Yesterday, after you gave Mama the cloak, he—" "Matthias, please." Elena was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "Your Majesty, I apologize. We should go." "No one is going anywhere." Aldric stood, and when a vampire king 3 centuries old stands with murder in his eyes, even brave men falter. Theron did not falter. "Your Majesty, this is clearly a misunderstanding. Perhaps the widow has been telling stories to her son, seeking attention or—" "Show me your arms," Aldric said to Elena. "Your Majesty, I—" "Show arms." Elena's hands shook as she reached for her sleeves. She pushed them up slowly, revealing bruises in various stages of healing. Finger marks on her wrists. A handprint on her upper arm, still fresh from that morning. The purple shadow of older injuries layered beneath newer ones. A pattern. A history. Months of violence written on skin. Aldric's vision went red at the edges. "Theron," he said, his voice dropping to a register that made the windows frost over. "When did you last interact with Lady Elena?" "This morning, Your Majesty. Briefly. To discuss the cloak." "Where?" "The servants' dining area." Aldric looked at Elena. "Did he touch you this morning?" Elena's mouth opened. She looked at Theron, at the threat implicit in his eyes, at the power dynamic that had kept her silent for months. Then she looked at her son, at Matthias's confused face, at the innocence being destroyed by her fear. "Yes," she whispered. "He grabbed my arm. To make me understand the importance of tonight's appointment." "I was merely ensuring she took the task seriously," Theron began. "You left bruises," Aldric interrupted, "on a woman under my protection. In my castle. Your Majesty, I assure you." "Matthias." Aldric turned to the boy, his voice gentling. "When you said this man hurt your mama, did you mean just this morning, or other times too?" "Other times," Matthias said. "Lots of times. He makes Mama cry." "Where does he hurt her?" "In the workroom. In the hallways. Once in the garden." Matthias counted on his fingers. "Mama says I'm not supposed to tell because we're just servants and he's important." "You did exactly right by telling." Aldric's hands clenched into fists. "Davrin, take Matthias to the kitchen. Ask cook to give you both sweets." "But father." "Now, son." Prince Davern recognized that tone. He grabbed Matthias's hand and fled. When the children were gone, Aldric turned to his oldest advisor, his most trusted counselor, the vampire noble he'd relied on for 4 decades. And he saw a stranger. "How long?" Aldric asked. Theron's expression hardened. The mask dropped. "Your Majesty, before you make accusations." "How? 3 months." Theron's voice was cold now, defiant. "Since she witnessed something she shouldn't have. A private business arrangement. I couldn't have her spreading rumors. So you terrorized her, beat her, threatened her child. I maintained order. I protected your interests." "My interests?" Aldric's power exploded outward, making the chandeliers sway, the tapestries whip in a windless gale. "You dare claim this was for me?" Elena stumbled backward, overwhelmed by the display of ancient vampire fury. Aldric caught her without looking, his hand steadying her elbow, and the moment his skin touched hers, the world tilted. The mate bond, dormant in him since Isolde's death, roared to life. The sensation of a mate bond awakening was unlike anything else in existence. It was recognition at a cellular level, a soul-deep certainty that this person was meant to be yours. Protected. Cherished. Bound. Aldric had felt it once before with Isolde. He'd assumed it was singular, that vampires only bonded once in their long lives. He'd been wrong. Elena gasped as the bond snapped into place from her side. Humans felt it differently, less overwhelming, more gentle, but no less certain. Her wide eyes met his, confusion and recognition warring in their depths. "You?" Aldric breathed. How did I not see?" Theron watched this exchange with dawning horror. A mate bond. The king had formed a mate bond with a human seamstress. The very woman Theron had been systematically destroying for months. "Your Majesty," Theron said carefully, "surely you're not suggesting—" "Get out." Aldric's voice was lethally quiet. "But—" "Get out before I kill you where you stand." The windows shattered. Every glass object in the room exploded. The chandelier crashed to the floor in a cascade of crystal. Theron ran. Aldric remained focused on Elena, on the bruises marking his mate's skin, on the fear still lingering in her eyes even as the bond hummed between them. "How badly are you hurt?" he asked, his voice shaking. "I'm fine, Your Majesty." "Don't lie to me. Please, gods, don't lie to me now." His hand moved to her face, cupping her cheek with devastating gentleness. "I need to know what he did. All of it." Elena's composure shattered. 3 months of terror, of swallowing screams, of hiding pain, came pouring out in broken sobs. "He threatened Matthias. Said if I told anyone, accidents happen to children. He'd corner me in empty rooms. Shove me against walls. Her voice broke. Once he held me by my throat until I blacked out. I woke up on the workroom floor with him standing over me, smiling." Aldric's fury was an arctic cold rage. Did he? He couldn't finish the question, couldn't voice the worst possibility. "No," Elena said quickly. "He'd threaten it. Imply it. But no, he never. I think he enjoyed the fear more than the act itself." "Small mercy." Aldric drew her closer, propriety be damned. His mate was hurt. Had been hurt repeatedly. While he sat on his throne, blind and useless. "I didn't know," he said roughly. "If I'd known." "How could you know?" "I hid it. He told me no one would believe me, and he was right. I'm nobody. He's a dead man." Aldric's eyes had gone fully black, the mark of a vampire's deepest fury. "Elena, look at me. What you're feeling right now, this connection between us, do you feel it?" "Yes," she whispered. "What is it?" "A mate bond. It means we're meant to be together. Meant to protect each other." His thumb traced her cheek, avoiding the faint bruise there. "I have failed spectacularly at the protection part, but that ends now. Right now. Your Majesty, you can't possibly a mate bond with me?" She laughed, slightly hysterical. "I'm a seamstress. A human. A widow with a child. You're a king. I'm a man who just found the person his soul recognizes as home. The rest is details." The rest is the entire kingdom. The kingdom will adjust. His voice was granite. You are my mate. That makes you untouchable. Anyone who harms you harms me. Elena sagged against him, the weight of months of fear finally finding a place to rest. He'll deny everything. It's my word against his. No, Aldric said grimly. It's your son's testimony, your bruises, and my complete certainty that you're telling the truth. That's enough. For what? For justice. Within an hour, Aldric had summoned his most trusted guards, specifically the ones who weren't under Theron's influence. He'd learned over 3 centuries that trusted advisors often cultivated their own power bases. He needed people loyal to the crown alone. Captain Lyris of the Royal Guard arrived first. She was an old vampire, 250 years, with silver hair and scars from a dozen wars. She'd served under Aldric's father and had no allegiance to anyone but the king. Your Majesty. She bowed. You summoned me urgently. I need Lord Theron Veyrath arrested and confined to the dungeons. Immediately. Lyris's eyes widened fractionally. On what charges, Your Majesty? Assault. Repeated assault of a woman under crown protection. Threatening a child. Abuse of power. Aldric's voice was ice. And those are just the charges we can prove immediately. I suspect deeper investigation will reveal more. Lord Theron has many allies on the council. I don't care if he has the gods themselves as allies. Arrest him. Now. Lyris bowed again. As you command. She left with 6 guards. Aldric turned to Elena, who sat wrapped in a blanket despite the summer heat, shaking with delayed shock. I need you to tell me everything, Aldric said gently. Every interaction with Theron, every threat, every moment of violence. I know it's difficult, but we need a record. An official account. Elena nodded numbly. Where's Matthias? With Davrin and the kitchen staff. He's safe. I've assigned guards to watch both boys. Thank you. Over the next 2 hours, Elena recounted 3 months of systematic abuse. Aldric had a scribe document everything. With each revelation, the threats, the physical violence, the psychological torment, his rage grew colder and more controlled. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was calculated, prolonged, deliberately hidden. He said, Elena's voice was hoarse from talking, that he'd done this before. To other women who'd seen too much. That no one ever believed them because he was too valuable to the crown. Aldric's hands, gripping the arms of his chair, left finger-shaped indents in the wood. Did he name them? No. But he implied there were at least 3 others. Captain Lyris. Aldric's voice carried through the castle. Within moments, she appeared. Search Theron's chambers. Every document, every letter, every hidden space. I want to know everything he's done for the past 40 years. It shall be done, Your Majesty. And Lyris? Find out if there are other women, other victims. Offer them full crown protection and immunity from any consequences if they come forward. Yes, Your Majesty. Elena watched this unfold with growing disbelief. You're really doing this. You're really investigating him. Did you doubt me? I doubted anyone would care enough. Aldric knelt before her, taking her hands carefully, mindful of the bruises. I care. The mate bond means I'm biologically incapable of not caring. But even without it, Elena, you're one of my people. You were under my protection the moment you entered this castle. I failed that protection. I failed you. That ends now. Tears streamed down her face. I don't know how to believe this is real. Then let me prove it. He stood, pulling her gently to her feet. You and Matthias will move into the royal wing. Guest chambers for now, until you're comfortable with what's developing between us. But you'll be under constant guard. No one will touch you again. The royal wing? Your Majesty, that's the only place I can guarantee your absolute safety. And please, when we're alone, call me Aldric. I can't possibly. You're my mate, Elena. We can navigate the politics later. Right now, I need you safe. She nodded, overwhelmed. A commotion echoed from the hallway. Captain Lyris returned, her expression grim, carrying a locked box. Your Majesty, we found this hidden in Lord Theron's chambers, behind a false panel in the wall. Aldric opened it. Inside were letters, journals, detailed notes. He began reading, and with each page, his expression grew darker. What is it? Elena asked. Evidence, Aldric said quietly, of bribery, blackmail, embezzlement. He's been skimming from the crown treasury for years, using his position to manipulate merchants, accept bribes, redirect funds. He looked up, eyes blazing, and detailed accounts of 4 women he's assaulted over the past decade, with notes on how he silenced each of them. Elena's hand flew to her mouth. For others, he documented everything, kept it as insurance, perhaps, or trophies. Aldric's voice shook with rage. He wrote about you, Elena, about how satisfying it was to make you afraid, how he enjoyed your tears. I'm going to be sick. Aldric guided her to a chair, holding her hair back as she retched into a basin. When she finished, he offered water, his touch infinitely gentle even as murder burned in his eyes. I want him dead, Aldric said to Lyris. But that's too quick. Too merciful. What do you command, Your Majesty? A public trial. Every crime exposed. Let the kingdom see what I trusted, what I allowed into my inner circle. Let the other victims have their justice spoken aloud. And his sentence? Aldric smiled. It was not a kind smile. I'll think of something appropriate. Within 3 days, 2 more women came forward. Both had worked in the castle. Both had left abruptly, their departures attributed to family matters or better opportunities. Both carried scars. Meredith had been a kitchen maid 5 years ago. Theron had assaulted her after she witnessed him stealing gold from a shipment meant for border fortifications. When she threatened to tell the king, he'd beaten her so badly she lost hearing in one ear. I left that night, she told the council chamber, her voice shaking. Packed everything and fled to my sister's home in the eastern provinces. I thought if I stayed, he'd kill me. The second victim, Elena, had been a tutor for noble children. Theron had harassed her for months, escalating to physical violence when she refused his advances. He told me, Elena's voice was flat, emotionless from trauma, that no one would believe a human woman over a vampire noble. That I was disposable. That girls like me disappeared all the time and no one cared. She'd left 8 years ago, abandoning a career she'd loved because the alternative was death. The 3rd and 4th victims were dead. One from the riding accident shortly after filing a complaint against Theron, a complaint that mysteriously disappeared from official records. The other from illness, though the physician's notes suggested injuries consistent with abuse. Elena sat in the council chamber listening to these women, and something inside her broke and reformed. She wasn't alone. Had never been alone. There was a pattern, a predator who'd hunted for years while wearing the mask of respectability. Aldric sat beside her, his hand never leaving hers. The mate bond hummed between them, stronger each day, and Elena was beginning to believe it might actually be real. How did he hide this for so long? She asked Aldric after the testimonies. Carefully. Methodically. Aldric's voice was bitter. And I was blind. Too trusting. Too focused on the kingdom's external threats to see the rot within my own court. You couldn't have known. I should have. The signs were there, women leaving suddenly, complaints that disappeared, your own fear that I was too blind to notice. He turned to her. How many times did you pass me in the hallways, covered in bruises, and I never saw? I hid them well. Not well enough that I should have missed them. I'm 300 years old, Elena. I've seen every kind of predator. I should have recognized one in my own council chamber. She squeezed his hand. We see what we're prepared to see. You trusted him. Foolishly. Humanly. Aldric laughed, a harsh sound. I haven't been human in 3 centuries. But you loved your wife. You grieved her. You're capable of trust and faith and hope. Elena's voice softened. Those are human qualities, no matter how long you've been alive. Don't punish yourself for having them. He pulled her closer, propriety be damned. They were in an empty council chamber, the other counselors dismissed. Just a king and his newly discovered mate, navigating impossible circumstances. The trial starts tomorrow, Aldric said. It will be public. Brutal. Every detail exposed. Good. Elena's voice was hard. Let everyone see what he is. Are you prepared to testify? Yes. It won't be easy. He'll try to discredit you. Claim you're lying for attention, for status, because of the mate bond. Let him try. Elena met his eyes. I'm done being silent. I'm done being afraid. If my testimony helps convict him, if it stops him from hurting anyone else, then I'll shout it from the castle walls. Aldric kissed her forehead. You're stronger than you know. I'm terrified. Brave people usually are. The throne room was packed. Every noble in the kingdom, every council member, hundreds of castle staff and citizens. This wasn't just a trial, it was a spectacle, a message, a reckoning. Theron stood in chains, his elegant robes replaced with prisoner's gray. He maintained his composure, his expression calm, but Elena saw the calculation in his eyes. He was strategizing, looking for escape routes, for allies in the crowd. He wouldn't find any. Aldric had been thorough. Every noble who'd received bribes from Theron had been given a choice: testify against him or face charges themselves. Most chose self-preservation. The charges were read aloud. Assault, battery, blackmail, embezzlement, threatening witnesses, abuse of power. On and on, a litany of crimes spanning decades. How do you plead? The Lord Justice asked. Not guilty. Theron's voice rang clear. I am the victim of a conspiracy, my lord. The king's new attachment has clouded his judgment. This woman, he gestured at Elena, seduced him, invented stories to remove me from power. Enough. Aldric's voice cut through the throne room. You'll have opportunity to defend yourself. For now, be silent. The prosecution began. Captain Lyris presented the journals, the documented accounts, the stolen funds recovered from Theron's private holdings. Merchant after merchant testified about bribes demanded, about threats made. Then the women spoke. Meredith went first. She described the beating, the terror, the years of looking over her shoulder. Several nobles shifted uncomfortably. They'd been told she left for family reasons. The lie was exposed. Elena followed. Her testimony was clinical, detached, a recitation of facts that made the horror somehow worse. He cornered me in the library, put his hand around my throat, told me I should be grateful for his attention. The crowd murmured. This was a vampire noble, a man of honor and standing, and he'd terrorized women for sport. Then Elena testified. She walked to the witness stand, Aldric's eyes on her the entire time, drawing strength from the mate bond. She recounted everything: the threats, the violence, the fear for her son. He grabbed my arm hard enough to leave finger-shaped bruises, she said, showing the marks still visible. He pushed me into walls, held me by my throat until I passed out. And he threatened my son repeatedly. Said accidents happen to children who have mothers with loose tongues. These are lies. Theron shouted. Your Majesty, she's manipulating. I have a 4-year-old witness, Elena said coldly. My son saw the violence. Reported it. Are you calling a child a liar too? The throne room went silent. Matthias was brought forward. He was terrified, clutching a guard's hand, but when he saw his mother, he straightened. Matthias, the Lord Justice said gently, did you see Lord Theron hurt your mother? Yes, sir. His small voice carried in the silent room. Lots of times. Can you tell us what you saw? He squeezed Mama's arm really hard. And he pushed her. And once I heard her crying in the workroom after he left. She had a red mark on her face. Is Lord Theron the man you saw doing these things? Matthias pointed directly at Theron. Yes, sir. That's him. The mean man who makes Mama sad. From the mouths of babes came the most damning testimony of all. Theron's composure finally cracked. Your Majesty, you can't possibly believe. I believe my mate, Aldric said quietly. I believe the other victims. I believe the evidence. And yes, Theron, I believe a 4-year-old child who had no reason to lie. The mate bond has compromised your judgment. No. Aldric stood, and the temperature in the throne room dropped. The mate bond opened my eyes to what I should have seen all along. That you are a predator. A parasite. A monster wearing the mask of nobility. The Lord Justice reviewed the evidence. The deliberation took less than an hour. Lord Theron Veyrath, the Justice intoned, you are found guilty on all charges. The Crown will now determine your sentence. Aldric stepped forward. I have given this considerable thought. Death would be too quick. Too merciful. So instead I offer you a choice. Theron's eyes narrowed. What choice? Exile to the wastes, stripped of your title, your wealth, your name. You'll live as a commoner among humans, forbidden from using vampire powers, with a curse mark that prevents you from harming another person without suffering tenfold the pain yourself. You can't. Or, Aldric continued, public execution. I'll make it quick. Relatively painless. You'll die with your name intact, your crimes forgotten within a generation. Theron's face twisted. The wastes were a brutal territory where exiled vampires went to die slowly. The curse mark would make him helpless. But death? Death was final. The wastes, Theron spat. At least I'll live to see you regret this. Regret her? I won't, Aldric said simply. Captain, take him away. As guards dragged Theron from the throne room, he screamed curses, threats, promises of revenge. The crowd watched in silence. When he was gone, Aldric turned to Elena. It's over, he said softly. She collapsed into his arms, sobbing with relief, with terror, with the overwhelming weight of justice finally delivered. It's over, she repeated. It's really over. The weeks following Theron's exile were strange and overwhelming. Elena moved into the royal wing as promised, though she insisted on keeping the guest chambers rather than moving into Aldric's personal quarters. Too fast, she'd said. I need time. To process. To heal. Aldric understood. The mate bond pulled at him, urged him to be closer, to protect and claim, but he controlled it. Elena had been controlled enough for one lifetime. Matthias adjusted with the resilience of children. He made friends with Prince Davrin, who appointed himself official big brother. The boys were inseparable, racing through castle corridors, building pillow forts, driving the staff to distraction. Your Majesty, the head of household complained, Prince Matthias put a frog in the diplomat's bed. Which diplomat? Aldric asked. Lord Harvin, Your Majesty. From the Southern Territories. The one who cheats at cards and propositioned 3 maids last month? Yes, Your Majesty. Then I see no problem. The frog stays. The staff learned quickly, Matthias was under royal protection. Not just as the king's mate's son, but because Aldric genuinely liked the boy. His curiosity, his kindness, his tendency to ask uncomfortable questions that revealed truths adults preferred to hide. Elena watched her son bloom with safety and attention, and something in her chest both ached and healed. He's happy, she told Aldric one evening. They sat in the castle gardens, the summer air warm and gentle. I haven't seen him this happy since before Marcus died. He deserves happiness. So do you. I don't know if I remember how to be happy. Elena's voice was soft. 3 months of constant fear. It changes you. It doesn't have to define you. Doesn't it? I still flinch when men approach too quickly. I panic when I can't see Matthias. I wake up from nightmares where Theron's back and you're gone and no one believes me. Aldric took her hand carefully. That's normal. You experienced prolonged trauma. Healing takes time. How much time? However long you need. He squeezed gently. I'm not going anywhere. The mate bond is permanent. What if I never heal? What if I'm broken? Then you're broken. Aldric's voice was fierce. And I'll love you anyway. You're not required to be perfect, Elena. You're only required to be yourself. She leaned against his shoulder, letting herself take comfort in his solid presence. I'm scared. Of what? That this won't last. That I'll wake up and it'll be a dream. That you'll realize I'm not worth the political complications of a human mate. The kingdom already knows you're my mate. They'll adjust or they won't, their opinion doesn't change reality. Some of the nobles hate it. I've heard them whisper. Some nobles hate everything. It's their primary occupation. Aldric smiled. Let them whisper. You're under my protection. Anyone who insults you insults me. You can't fight the entire nobility. Watch me. Elena laughed despite herself. You're absurd. I'm in love. Aldric's voice went soft. With a seamstress who's braver than half my warriors and who survived hell with grace intact. If that makes me absurd, so be it. You don't know me well enough to love me. The mate bond knows you. It chose you. That's enough. Is it? Aldric turned to face her fully. Ask me in a year. Ask me in 10 years. Ask me in a century, if you accept the turning. The answer will always be yes, Elena. You're my mate. My partner. My equal. No matter what the nobility thinks, no matter what complications arise, you're mine and I'm yours. That's immutable. Tears streamed down her face. I want to believe that. Then believe it. One day at a time. The royal council was not pleased with their king's choice of mate. 2 weeks after Theron's exile, they called a formal meeting to address concerns about the crown's stability. Aldric arrived with Elena at his side. She'd argued against attending, but he'd insisted. You're part of this court now. They need to see you're not hiding. The council chamber held 12 members, all vampire nobility. They'd served for decades, some for centuries, and they looked at Elena with expressions ranging from disdain to open hostility. Lord Marius, the trade minister who'd testified against Theron only to save his own skin, spoke first. Your Majesty, while we understand the mate bond is involuntary, perhaps it would be wise to manage its political implications carefully. Meaning? Aldric's voice was cold. Meaning Lady Elena could remain your consort without formal recognition. A private arrangement. It would avoid complications regarding the succession, treaty negotiations with other vampire kingdoms. Elena is my mate. Aldric's words cut like glass. She will be publicly recognized as such. Formally acknowledged. Given appropriate titles and authority. Your Majesty, Lady Corvine, the eldest counselor, leaned forward. No vampire king has taken a human mate in over 500 years. The precedent. I don't care about precedent. You should. Other kingdoms will see this as weakness. They'll assume you've been compromised, that human sentiment clouds your judgment. My judgment was clouded when I trusted a predator like Theron for 40 years, Aldric said flatly. If anything, the mate bond has sharpened my perception. I see this court clearly now. The council shifted uncomfortably. Furthermore, Aldric continued, Elena is not politically powerless. She's observant, intelligent, and has survived circumstances that would destroy lesser people. I value her counsel. She's a seamstress, Lord Marius said dismissively. What could she possibly understand about governance? She understands what it's like to be powerless in a system that protects the powerful, Elena said quietly. Every head turned toward her. She'd been silent until now, letting Aldric fight her battles, but something in Marius's tone snapped her patience. She understands, Elena continued, meeting each counselor's eyes, how people like Theron operate. How they use their positions to prey on those who can't fight back. How corruption festers when people like you, she gestured at Marius, take bribes and look the other way because it's convenient. How dare you? I dare because I have nothing left to lose. You all sat in this chamber while Theron terrorized women for years. Some of you knew. Some of you suspected. None of you said anything because it was easier to ignore it. That's not fair, Lady Corvine protested. We had no evidence. You had women leaving suddenly. You had complaints that disappeared. You had a pattern if you'd bothered to look. Elena's voice was steel. But you didn't look because looking would have required action, and action would have been inconvenient. The chamber went silent. So yes, Elena said, I'm a seamstress. A human. A woman with no formal power. But I see this court for what it is. A collection of people more concerned with comfort than justice. If my presence makes you uncomfortable, good. Maybe discomfort will motivate you to be better. She sat down, heart-hammering, expecting outrage. Instead, Lord Castellan, one of the few counselors who'd immediately supported Theron's prosecution, began to clap. Slowly, deliberately. "Well said, Lady Elena. Very well said indeed." One by one, half the council joined the applause. The other half looked furious but remained silent. Aldric was grinning. "Any other objections to my mate's place in this court?" No one spoke. "Excellent. Then we'll proceed with the formal recognition ceremony in 3 weeks. Elena will be officially acknowledged as royal consort and granted appropriate authority over household matters, judicial appeals from castle staff, and welfare initiatives for vulnerable populations." "Your Majesty," Lady Corvine tried one more time, "what about the succession? Your son Davrin is crown prince, but if you have children with Lady Elena..." "Any children Elena and I have will be princes or princesses with full royal status," Aldric said firmly. "Their place in succession will be determined by birth order and merit, not by human versus vampire prejudice. Is that clear?" It was clear. The council adjourned, and Elena sagged in her chair once they were alone. "I can't believe I just lectured vampire nobility." "You were magnificent," Aldric said. "I was terrified." "Bravery is being terrified and speaking anyway." He pulled her to her feet into his arms. "You're going to be an extraordinary consort. I'm going to be a disaster. Then you'll be my disaster." She laughed despite herself, and for the first time in months, it felt genuine. 3 weeks later, the entire kingdom gathered for the formal recognition ceremony. It was held in the grand cathedral attached to the castle, a soaring space of stained glass and ancient stone. Elena wore a gown that took her breath away, silver silk embroidered with midnight blue, created by the castle's master seamstress who tearfully insisted it was an honor to dress one of their own. Matthias wore a miniature version of royal formal wear, looking both adorable and uncomfortable. Prince Davrin stood beside him, whispering reassurances. The ceremony was elaborate, full of traditional vampire rituals that Elena barely understood. She knelt before Aldric, who placed a coronet on her head, not a crown, she wasn't queen, but a symbol of royal consort status. "Do you, Elena Thane, accept the responsibility of standing beside the crown?" the high priest intoned. "I do." "Do you swear to honor the kingdom, protect its people, and counsel the king with wisdom and honesty?" "I do." "Then by the power vested in me and witnessed by this gathering, I recognize you as royal consort Elena, mate to King Aldric Nighthaven, and member of the royal household." The crowd erupted in applause. Not everyone was happy. Elena saw scowls among some nobles, but the majority seemed genuinely pleased. Aldric pulled her to her feet and kissed her, propriety be damned. The crowd cheered louder. "You're officially stuck with me now," he murmured against her lips. "I think I can live with that." The celebration afterward was overwhelming. Hundreds of people wanting to congratulate her, or curry favor, or simply see the human woman who'd captured the king's heart. Elena smiled until her face ached, made small talk until her voice was hoarse, and tried not to panic at being the center of attention. Matthias saved her. "Mama!" He pushed through the crowd, Davrin in tow. "Mama, we found the dessert table and there's chocolate and..." "Slow down, sweetheart." Elena laughed, kneeling to his level. "What about chocolate?" "Prince Davrin says I can have as much as I want because it's a special occasion." "Prince Davrin is going to make you sick." "But it's chocolate." Elena looked up at Aldric helplessly. He was grinning. "It's a special occasion. Let the boy have chocolate." "You're all conspiring against me." "Absolutely." Aldric offered his hand. "Let's raid the dessert table together." They spent the rest of the evening as a family, Aldric, Elena, Matthias, and Davrin, eating too much chocolate, dancing badly, and laughing at nothing in particular. Later, when the guests had gone and Matthias was asleep in his new royal chambers, Aldric walked Elena to her rooms. "You survived your first official royal function," he said. "Barely. You'll get used to it." "Will I?" Elena leaned against her door. "This is all so strange. 3 months ago I was terrified and powerless. Now I'm a royal consort. I don't know how to be this person." You don't have to know. Just be yourself. Aldric cupped her face. Elena, the woman I fell in love with, the woman the mate bond chose, isn't royalty or titles. She's a mother who protected her son, a survivor who found courage when she had none, a person who sees injustice and refuses to stay silent. That's who I want beside me. Even when I'm terrified? Especially then. She kissed him, properly this time, letting herself believe that maybe, impossibly, this could work. When they pulled apart, Aldric rested his forehead against hers. I have a question. I've been afraid to ask. What? Do you want this? Truly? Or are you here because the mate bond compels you, because you feel you owe me, because… I want this, Elena interrupted. I'm terrified and overwhelmed and completely out of my depth, but I want this. I want you. She smiled. The mate bond helps. But even without it, I think I'd choose you. Even though I'm absurdly old and politically complicated? Even though. Aldric kissed her again, slower this time, savoring. Then we'll figure the rest out together. Together, Elena agreed. 6 months after the recognition ceremony, Elena found Matthias in the castle library with Prince Davrin. They were supposed to be studying history. Instead, they'd built a fort out of ancient texts and were defending it against imaginary invaders. Matthias Alexander Thane, Elena said sternly, are those irreplaceable historical documents you're using as walls? Both boys froze. Matthias said. Maybe. Definitely, Davrin confirmed. But in our defense, the books said we should learn from history, and we're learning about fortification. Elena tried not to laugh. Put them back. Carefully. As the boys dismantled their fort, Matthias turned to her with that serious expression he got sometimes. Mama, can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. That morning, when I asked why Daddy's friend hurt you, did I do the right thing? Elena's heart clenched. She knelt beside him. You did exactly the right thing, Matthias. You saw something wrong and you said something. That took enormous courage. But you cried a lot after. And there was the trial. And people were mean to you. Some people were mean. But many more people were kind. And because you spoke up, Lord Theron can't hurt anyone else ever again. She hugged him tightly. You saved me, sweetheart. And you saved other women who might have been hurt in the future. So it's good I talked? It's always good to talk about things that hurt you or scare you. Always. Matthias nodded, then brightened. Does that mean I should tell you about the frog? What frog? The one Davrin and I put in Tutor Hendric's desk drawer. Elena closed her eyes. Why? He was mean to the kitchen maid. Made her cry. And you thought a frog would help? We thought it would teach him a lesson about being nice. Davrin nodded solemnly. It's called positive reinforcement. That's not what positive reinforcement means. Are you sure? Elena looked at the ceiling, seeking patience from the gods. Then she laughed because these boys, her son and his best friend, were learning to stand up for people who couldn't defend themselves. It was a good lesson, even if their methods needed work. Go apologize to Tutor Hendric, she said, and retrieve the frog. Then report to your fathers for a discussion about appropriate ways to address injustice. The boys trudged off, muttering about how adults never understood. Elena returned to her chambers, no longer the guest quarters, but rooms connecting to Aldric's personal suite. It had taken 3 months before she felt ready to move closer, but the transition had been gentle. Aldric never pushed, never demanded, just waited with patient devotion. She found him at his desk, reviewing trade agreements. He looked up when she entered, and his expression softened immediately. How are our young vigilantes? They put a frog in Tutor Hendric's desk. Aldric's lips twitched. The same tutor who made Clara cry? The same. Then perhaps the frog serves a purpose. You're supposed to be discouraging this behavior. I'm supposed to be teaching them to protect the vulnerable. Mission accomplished. He pulled her into his lap. Though I'll have a word about methods. Elena relaxed against him. 6 months, and the mate bond had deepened into something more than supernatural connection. This was partnership, friendship, love that grew daily. Matthias asked if he did the right thing. That morning at breakfast, Aldric's arms tightened around her. What did you tell him? That he saved me. That speaking up was brave. She turned to look at Aldric. He did, save me. If he hadn't asked that question, I would have remained blind, Aldric finished quietly. I owe that boy everything. He loves you. Calls he the king daddy when he thinks I can't hear. Does he? Aldric's voice was suspiciously rough. I love him too. Like a son. Would you want to formally adopt him? Make him a prince? Aldric pulled back to look at her. Are you serious? Matthias needs a father. His biological father is gone. And you've been more of a father to him these past 6 months than Marcus ever had the chance to be. Elena's voice was soft. If you want. No pressure. I just thought. Yes. Aldric didn't hesitate. Gotcha. I'd be honored. Really? Elena, he's your son. Which makes him precious to me automatically. But beyond that, he's brave and kind and asks uncomfortable questions that reveal truths others miss. He's exactly the kind of person I'd want as family. Elena kissed him, her heart full. Then we'll start the adoption paperwork. He'll be Prince Matthias Nighthaven. He'll be insufferable. Probably. But he'll be ours. 2 weeks later, Elena attended her first official council meeting as royal consort. She had the right to observe and offer counsel, though she couldn't vote on policy. She'd been nervous about attending, but Aldric had insisted. Your perspective matters. These old vampires have forgotten what it's like to be vulnerable. The meeting started with standard business, trade negotiations, border patrols, infrastructure maintenance. Elena listened carefully, learning the rhythm of governance. Then Lord Castellan raised a new issue. Your Majesty, we've had 3 reports this month of assaults on female staff. Minor incidents, inappropriate advances, unwanted touching. I propose we increase patrols in servant areas. Minor incidents? Elena's voice cut through the discussion. Every head turned. Did you just call assault minor? Castellan blinked. I meant, the physical harm was minimal. No serious injuries. Sexual assault is serious injury, Elena said coldly. It doesn't have to break bones to break a person. Lady Elena, I understand your sensitivity given your experience, but this has nothing to do with my experience and everything to do with your dismissive language. She stood, addressing the full council. You want to increase patrols. Fine. But that's treating symptoms, not causes. What are you doing to prevent these incidents? What consequences face the perpetrators? What support exists for victims? Silence. That's what I thought. Elena's voice was steel. You have no formal reporting system. No investigation protocol. No victim support infrastructure. You've created an environment where predators can operate with impunity because their victims have no recourse. We've always handled such matters informally, Lady Corvine started. How did that work with Theron? Elena interrupted. He hurt women for a decade while your informal system did nothing. Because informal means those with power protect their own, and those without power suffer in silence. Aldric was grinning. The rest of the council looked uncomfortable. What do you propose? Lord Marius asked carefully. Elena had been waiting for this question. She'd spent 2 weeks developing detailed plans with the castle's senior staff. First, establish a formal office of justice oversight. Independent investigators who report directly to the Crown, not council members who might have conflicts of interest. Second, create confidential reporting mechanisms so victims can come forward safely. Third, mandatory training for all castle staff, noble and servant alike, on appropriate conduct. Fourth, transparent consequences for perpetrators, regardless of rank. And fifth, support services for victims including counseling, medical care, and legal advocacy. She paused. I have detailed proposals for each point. If the council is interested. The council is very interested, Aldric said. Lady Elena, please present your full plan. Over the next hour, Elena outlined a comprehensive system to address abuse and harassment in the castle. Some counselors resisted. Change always faced resistance. but the majority recognized the necessity. By meeting's end, the council had approved funding for the Office of Justice Oversight, agreed to implement reporting mechanisms, and authorized Elena to oversee the entire initiative. "Your first official policy victory," Aldric said afterward. "How does it feel?" "Terrifying," Elena admitted. "What if I mess it up?" "Then you'll learn and try again. That's how governance works." He kissed her forehead. "I'm proud of you. I just don't want anyone else to suffer what I suffered. And that's exactly why you're perfect for this work. You understand both the need and the stakes." The castle seamstress became a queen in all but name. The terrified widow became a voice for the voiceless. The abused woman became the architect of justice. And the 4-year-old boy who asked a simple question? He grew up to become a prince who never stopped asking questions, never stopped speaking up, never stopped protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Because sometimes the smallest voices deliver the most important truths. Sometimes a child's question can save a life. And sometimes the person you're meant to love has been standing in front of you all along, you just needed to see them. King Aldric Nighthaven learned to see. Elena learned to trust. Matthias learned that speaking up always matters. And in Castle Nighthaven, no one ever again suffered in silence while the powerful looked away. Justice came. Love grew. And a family built itself from broken pieces transformed by courage.